Good evening, good morning, wherever you are. Welcome to our live coverage of Flight VV18, our first Arianespace Vega flight of 2021. This is going to be some show. We're here in Toulouse. Why Toulouse? Because it's also the headquarters of Airbus. And we are launching the Airbus's latest commercial, sophisticated observation satellite. Just about the best in the world, the latest generation. And on top of that, there'll be 5 other satellites piggybacking along for the ride. We'll be able to tell you about those as well, because I have with me in the studio leading experts. My guru to the right is Damien, and soon Raphael will be joining me on the left, who will be able to tell you everything you need to know about Vega, everything you need to know about the Airbus satellites, and how it'll impact you and our lives. Because of the studio, we can show you even closer the actual getting closer to the launch itself. And here, I want to show you the Vega launch right in your TV monitor, thanks to some of the animations we can do here. So let's have a look right now at the Vega launcher. There you go. We're going to be showing you animation like this throughout the night. It's really worth staying up for, as you get the amazing advice as well from Damien and from Raphael and from our experts from Arianespace in Kourou as well. So do stay tuned. Of course, what we want to do is tell you that the countdown is coming very, very soon. And we should be going any minute now to Kourou as well, because we want to speak to the CEO of Arianespace, who's probably right behind me. I'm waiting for him to come up now, and it'll be Stefan Israel. Can Stefan see me? Hello.
Good evening, yes, I hear you.
Great. So tell me, how do you
Hello.
feel right now?
So we are now 5 minutes before liftoff. We are all focused on the success of the mission. We are here in the Jupiter cell control with all our partners from AEO, from ESA, from CNES. And we are just now before the big event.
This, of course, marks Vega's return to flight. Tell me how that's going.
So we are going to deliver tonight for Airbus, as you have mentioned, our main customer with Pléiades Neo and Earth observation satellite. We are going to deliver with 5 more auxiliary payload in piggyback, and this is a return to flight. So it means that it is coming after months of very hard work with our partners, and tonight we are ready for this mission.
So tell us, how will the mission unfold as we watch this all taking place live here from Toulouse and from Kourou, of course, where you are right now in mission control?
Yeah, so liftoff will occur at 10:50. We will have the separation of the first 3 stages approximately 7 minutes after liftoff. Pleiades Neo will be separated 54 minutes after liftoff, and 47 minutes after the separation of Pleiades Neo, we will have the separation of the 5 auxiliary payload, all that at an altitude of 600 kilometers. And we have now the DDO, our range manager, who is saying that everything is okay to go for the launch. So we are really now in the final countdown.
Indeed, I can hear the range manager there. Obviously, so important as we get the guidelines on what's happening. Stefan, I know you've got a very busy few minutes ahead of you, so fingers crossed, good luck, and hope this all goes really well. And we'll talk to you at the other end, of course, afterwards to celebrate. All right?
Thank you. Thank you.
So now I turn to my whiz kid.
Hi, Chris.
Damien, tell us, what should we be watching out for now?
Yeah, let's have a look at the main milestone of the missions that are going to come up. So first, the liftoff will occur from the Guyana Space Center. After the liftoff is triggered by the ignition of the P80 stage, which is the first booster of the Vega launch vehicle. The second and third stages that we call Zefiro 23 and Zefiro 9 will continue the job of the P80. They will increase the launcher velocity. The fairing separation will be triggered during the flight of the Zefiro 9, the third stage booster. And the end of the Zefiro 9 flight will trigger the separation of the stage, which will occur in direct visibility of Bermuda. We have then the first ignition of the AVUM, which is the upper stage reignitable engine. The cutoff of the stage 8 minutes after the ignitions will occur in visibility of Saint-Hubert still. And after this cutoff, we start a phase that we call the long ballistic phase, which allows us to reach visibility from a new inertia in Australia, where we will trigger the second AVOM boost before releasing the first main passenger, Pléiades Neo 3. After the release of Pleiades Neo 3, we prepare for the injection into the orbit required by the auxiliary passengers with two boosts, the third and the fourth AVOM boost, which will occur in visibility of Galileo, and we have the sequence of separation of the 5 auxiliary passengers in visibility of Bermuda, one after another. The launcher will complete its mission with the 5th AVOM boost in visibility of Saint-Hubert in order to trigger the re-entry.
Very quick question before we get to the final countdown. Compared to, say, when Thomas Pesquet went up to the ISS last week, is it the same orbit or?
No, it's not the same orbit. We will start, of course, below the altitude of the ISS. At the end of the first AVOM boost, we are slightly below the altitude of the ISS. During the first ballistic phase that we discussed about, the altitude increases and we go beyond the altitude of the ISS, and we separate all our customers far beyond the altitude of the ISS.
We can see right now behind us, here on the space wall, the team's getting ready for the final seconds before liftoff.
Yeah, we see the mission manager who will announce us 1 minute before liftoff.
Tell me the role of the DDO, as they call it in French, the range manager.
The range manager is the guy who is in charge of monitoring the status of the different preparation for the operation coming from the ground and also acquiring the status from the launcher.
And we're going to be going to the, how long do you think we've got now until the countdown?
We are around 40 seconds
40
until the
seconds.
liftoff.
So we're almost there. And just also the ground stations, very quickly, in 10 seconds, their role?
Yes, we have several ground stations around the Earth in order to allow us to get direct data coming from the launcher and provide you with the actual status.
So we're there now, so now let's listen in and watch.
À tous de DDO, attention pour les décomptes finales. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, unité, top. Allumage P80 et décollage V18. Est nominal.
I mean, we never get tired of seeing those launches,
No,
do we?
it's always something very beautiful to look at.
So we're into it now. What happens? We track it now. Tell me what happens now.
Yeah, now we are in the phase that we call the P80 phase. It's the name of the first stage boosters, which allows us to get far from the launch pad. During this phase, we burn solid propellant. So the name of P80 comes from the amount of propellant that we have on board. So it's roughly 80 tons of propellant, slightly more. And during these phases, the launcher provides thrust and accelerations, and the separation of the stage will be triggered when the acceleration will get below a predefined threshold in order to get use of this mass, which is useless once you have used almost all the propellant inside.
When will the first separation take place?
The first separation will take place around 2 minutes after liftoff, so we should see it in a few seconds.
And you're monitoring, you're directly in contact with Kourou.
Yeah, I have a direct contact with the people who are getting the real-time telemetry data and who are monitoring the current status of the launch. So as soon as I will get the confirmation, I will let you know along all the mission.
And this is the next really important stage.
Yes, and the separation of the P80 has just been confirmed, and we have the ignition of the second stage, which we call the Zefiro 23.
So confirmation, the first separation has gone ahead as planned, which is what we were looking for.
Yeah.
What happens next?
Now it's the job of the second stage, which will increase still the launcher velocity and the altitude in order to provide additional energy to the launcher. And then when it will complete its job, It is exactly the same principle as for the PAT. It means once we have used almost all the propellant that is inside the stage, we will trigger the separation, once again based on the detection of the acceleration.
Okay, and in any moment now, we're going to hopefully go back to Kourou through the space wall and see the team monitoring all the progress. I guess the ground station's giving all the information as well that they need. Great. You know, it just, this whole operation is supposed to take, what, an hour and 40 between launch and dropping off all the different satellites?
Between the liftoff and the separation of the Pléiades Neo 3, we have around 55 minutes, and up to the separation of the auxiliary passenger, 1 hour and 40 seconds, more or less.
And you never get tired of a launch, do you?
No, it's always something very beautiful to look at.
So just a reminder, the launch took off about 3 or 4 minutes ago, and we're now waiting for the next separation detail to come up, and you'll know about it very soon because Damien is in constant contact with the range manager, with Kourou, and I guess that's going to be imminent now.
We are getting close to the moment of separation, but we are still waiting for the final moment.
And just a reminder, you're watching us here from Toulouse, where Airbus has its headquarters, where the satellite was made. And I have Damien here from Arianespace giving me all the latest information. And I'm going to be joined here very soon by Raphael, also from Arianespace. Yeah.
I want to share with you the fact that the separation of the Zefiro 23 has been confirmed, and we have the start of the roll maneuver before igniting the Z9.
This is very good news, right?
And the fairing has been separated as well.
So that's great. So come on in now. So what we want to do now is we want to go through what the Vega launcher is like.
Exactly, and Raphael will present you.
Raphael?
Hello.
Let's go now through the magic of the studio and look at this Vega launcher launch rocket and take us through everything.
Come out of the ground magically. So it's actually, the Vega launcher is actually much bigger than this, of course. It's 30 meters tall. It weighs a little less than 140 tons. And it is composed of 4 stages, each playing a key role in the smooth execution of the launch mission. So the main stage that we see here is really the one who is going to put the Vega launcher out of the Earth to extract it from the gravitational effect of the Earth. You see also that there is like a conical interstage that is making the junction between the first stage and the second stage, which diameter is slightly reduced to 2 meters, and the first stage was 3 meters diameter. And then the third stage that just ignited, and it will do this for a couple of minutes, is there. It's 4 meters tall. And then, of course, right now, we saw that the fairing was separated in 2 halves. It means that we are beyond the limits of the atmosphere. We don't need the fairing anymore to protect the satellites from the frictions of the air, of the atmosphere. And also, doing so, we get rid of a dead weight that is not anymore useful for the rest of the missions. And of course, this phase is very, very critical because otherwise we would not be able to separate the satellites into space. And last but not least, you have the last stage, the AVOOM stage, which will continue the mission. It's absolutely key because this is the one who is going to put the satellites at the right locations in space. It has a reignition capability, which is absolutely key, and I think we will talk about it later.
I'm sure you will. These are amazing pictures we're looking at. And while I have you here on my right is my other guru. We're now waiting for the next separation element, right?
The separation of the separation has just occurred.
It just occurred.
Yeah,
okay, that's very good news as well. Okay, so let's moving forward now from there. Go ahead, Raphael. What else can you tell us now?
Maybe on the AVOOM.
Yeah.
So I said that it's absolutely key technology because, especially for capturing the small satellites markets, because these are very specific satellites that typically have very limited propulsion capabilities. So it means that they require the launch vehicle to separate them as close as possible to their operational orbits. And we do this with several boosts in order to address complex missions. And doing this, it allows us also to optimize the filling ratio of the launch vehicle in order to share the cost of the launch between all the passengers. This is like carpooling in space.
And that's the reason why we have Pleiades Neo and we have 5 other smaller satellites who are all taking part in this ride together. It makes sense for everyone.
Exactly, from CubeSats to a little bigger satellites, it's very convenient to actually capture this market and to improve and augment the launch opportunities that we have with our launch vehicles.
And you're, of course, continuing to track what's going on there, right? And
We are currently in the phases just before the ignition of the AVUM, in the phases where we tilt the launcher in order to get the correct orientation just before ignition. And as soon as I have the information, I will let you know.
okay, and that
Ignition confirmed.
ignition's confirmed. Okay, so now we have the AVUM, and that's all going well now.
It looks like it's going well, so it's a very key step right now, because this is really the AVUM that is going to do the rest of the missions and to do the last orbital maneuvers in order to, like I said, separate the satellites one by one at very specific locations in space.
Thanks, Raphael. We'll
you.
come back to you, okay? Let me introduce now François Lombard, who's actually with Airbus Intelligence. You're the one with the commercial responsibility of dealing with all these satellites' information and data and getting the customers to be able to use it. Welcome.
That's right.
Your thoughts so far?
Well, good morning to all. My thought, I feel relieved, happy, and fully excited about the next steps. I understand it all goes right, and I'm looking forward to the following steps of this event.
Because this has been a work in progress. It's been about 5 years or so.
Yeah, it's a long journey actually. It took about 5 years to actually get there to the first satellites. Just to mention as well, almost 1,000 people, men and women, working on this in the Airbus team. So a big journey, and I'd like to thank them because it's really their success that we see today. And it's only the start of the journey, because we'll have the second satellite, which is planned for July. Next launch, and we will have 2 other satellites which will be launched in the course of 2022. So big journey in front of us, and then 10 to 12 years of hard work with our customers using the imagery of these satellites.
As I said at the beginning, as we went on into this live coverage, this is a huge technological advance, a generational hop. Explain that, because I think you can really focus in on some amazing things now.
Well, typically here, these satellites and the next 3 Pleiades Neo, they will provide 30 centimeter native resolution. So it's a very high accuracy of the imagery, and that's the best you can get on the commercial market. There are only 2 companies in the world that can provide you that. And we have put further other innovations on top of that. You will have laser terminals on these satellites, so you can communicate directly with lasers. You will have a lot of agility and a huge capacity. So in the years to come, you will see a lot of this data actually going into many applications, and we'll speak about this.
And we also have to point out that this is Neo 3, but in fact there's 4 altogether going up.
Yes, exactly. And it's part of a much bigger constellation, so part of a much bigger story. But altogether, it makes a lot of sense for our customers, for our partners, and indeed, it's a technological leap because they need this 30 centimeter resolution, and they will get a lot.
Let's now look at this video explaining just what the Neo is. Go ahead. Spectacular. Now, at the beginning, I said this was a generational leap because you can do 30 centimeters, zooms in. You know, one key issue could be urban planning. As cities become megapolises and more of us move into towns and cities and become more dense, this kind of technology and what NEO can offer will be essential.
That's right, Chris. There are many applications. Urban mapping is one of the key ones because of the density of cities, which is growing, because of pollutions, because of many areas. Here you see one image actually, which is at 50 centimeter resolution, so previous generation. But you see a city with a lot of density, a lot of complexity, water, buildings, and many things. On the next page, you will see afterwards that we can play actually with artificial intelligence to get more data out of these images. This is what you see here.
Okay, first of all, explain what are the different color codes. Obviously, I can tell a river.
So, yeah, the river is in blue, obviously. In pink, you will see the buildings, so people living there. You will see in green the areas with vegetations, trees, and so on, and the roads, and many other things. What's important is that this type of map is very precise. So you can use it for many things which are important missions. If you have waters going up, a flood, for instance, you can really see and calculate what will be the impact on the buildings. If you want to change a bit the environmental impact on the city, you can work very precisely on your vegetation map and get also some monitoring out of that. Finally, maybe worth to mention, you can look at the economic activity. Here it's one map, but actually the satellites, they are coming, and they give you very precise information. You can look at objects, cars, people, and you can actually derive information from that.
Question though, this is 30 centimeter. What is it until now?
Well, until now, Airbus was providing 50 centimeter and above, which was providing already a lot of information and very strong position on the market. But clearly, the market is expecting more. They're expecting also more capacity, more agility, more information, and at the sweet spot, which is currently 30 centimeters on the commercial market.
Can I stop you for a second, Damien?
Just hot news, we have the confirmation of the cutoff of the first AVOM according to the timing and trajectory is completely nominal.
Okay, so in human talk, what does that mean?
It means that we have completed the first part of the AVOM job and we are where we want to be at the time where we want to be. So everything is nominal.
So your client here must be happy.
Close to Christmas.
Well, that's good news. We'll wait for more from you coming up.
For sure.
So let's take this a bit further now. It's not just, I'm interested in the AI, but you'll talk to me about that in a second, but pollution and maritime issues also could be extremely relevant with this new.
Indeed, the maritime surveillance, maritime security, maritime pollutions are topics which are more and more important. In the maritime domain, you have one additional difficulty, which is that you are looking at very broad areas. That's where, again, you need a lot of capacity, several satellites. But sometimes you are also looking at very precise things, looking for a ship which you have lost. Here on this image, which you see here, you have actually a tanker here. This tanker was hijacked, and nobody could find them. The only way to find them was to use our satellites. So this is a kind of mission that you can complete, which has very strong security impact.
This was a hijacked ship, a real case scenario?
Yes.
Okay, well, you've got to tell us, did they find the bad guys?
They found the bad guys, and thanks to our satellites.
Go into the pollution area as well. I'm interested in that, how that can help.
Well, the pollution is also indeed an interesting case because on Pleiades Neo we have decided also to get some spectral bands that give us more information around the water, and especially we can go a few meters below the water in terms of visibility. And that gives us information like looking at plastics, for instance, looking at specific pollutions which is not exactly at the surface. So we'll get a lot of these new informations, and I think it will help a lot on the market.
And who would ask for that kind of information? Would that be governments, NGOs? Would that be private enterprise?
Honestly, it's all, more and more. It started obviously a lot with governments, NGOs and so on, but more and more also the commercial market, the private markets are looking at these kind of things. From different perspectives, economical perspectives, responsibility. So it's moving a lot.
So, you know how they talk about how those massive islands of pollution or litter, debris in the water,
yes,
kind of going with the currents. So you could track that.
we could track that. I hope we can track that. That's the idea, and actually to get some more and more information and to help to solve at least partially the issue. Here you can see also on the map another aspect which I think is interesting. Is here we have used artificial intelligence to actually track and look for ships. On the previous image, you had plenty of ships. So obviously, if you are doing that as a human, it takes you time, and sometimes you miss the ships. Here, with the artificial intelligence, you get it automatically, very performing, but only if you have good images. And that's why it's very important to have good satellites with very accurate images. Here, you even see through the clouds. That's where the machine, together with the good imagery, is doing some miracles.
So you can penetrate cloud cover?
Almost. They are using some space between the clouds, but somehow it gives information we didn't get before.
That's extraordinary that you can use AI with satellite imagery to do so many things now.
Yes.
This is a real advance, right?
Yes, yes, and that's really a kind of a virtuous circle. The more AI, the more data we can use. And the more data, the more satellites, the more capacity we have, the more missions we can fulfill.
Francois, this is all very, very interesting. You'll be with us again very shortly,
Sure.
but I'm now going to pass it on to your colleague now, who's going to be joining us. So thanks for that. That's all very enlightening to hear that, okay? And we're having good news now, of course, from Damien. So now, Damien, do you have something else?
Yeah, just to tell you that we have lost completely nominally the telemetry link, which is completely foreseen. So now we will wait for the next acquisition of the telemetry at the end of the first ballistic phase, and I will come back to you just when the telemetry will come back as well.
Okay, come back with some great news,
Thank you.
okay?
Bye.
All right, thank you. So now, I would like to introduce Philippe Farm, who's head of Earth observation at Airbus. Hello, Philippe. I guess you've heard some of the good news that things are going well.
Hi, Chris. Yes, very good news indeed. Very relieved.
Explain to me, from a simple person like me, why do you call it a NEO?
We call it Neo because this is the real latest technology for satellite imagery, the latest generation of satellite performance and capacities. Latest generation, so this is why we call it Neo.
Where was the satellite made? I think you're going to tell me a lot of it was in Europe and a huge amount in France.
Yes, indeed. I mean, both platform and instruments were designed, developed, manufactured and tested in Toulouse. We are embarking mainly European technologies and equipment that we collected all over Europe and also in France. So it's a French plus European satellite indeed.
Describe to me, as we've been talking, it's the generational leap. We've gone from 50 centimeters down to 30, but there's more to this than that, isn't it? The way you make satellites is quicker, cheaper, lighter. There's so much, right?
Exactly. This satellite has been is the result of 5 intense years of hard work, millions of labor hours to come up with a very compact, very agile design. This is embarking really the latest technologies in terms of detection chain, silicon carbide material, very capable end-to-end processing chain, a very, let's say, capable satellite indeed.
I think in a few seconds we're actually going to be able to see another animated reality of the satellite. And before it comes up, another key thing is this satellite can last longer, right?
Yes, currently the lifetime of our satellites is 10 plus years. It used to be 7, 5 or 3 years, 20 years ago. We've made a lot of progress. We are now quicker in building, cheaper in cost, very efficient in launch.
I think we can see it right here.
Very big difference.
How about that? So talk us through what we're seeing here.
Yes, here you see a 3D animation of our satellite design. You see how compact it is, what is the very small satellite size. You see how the accommodation of all instrument, platform equipments, solar arrays has been optimized to really fit in a very small volume to enable an optimum launch compatibility and to be able to use a lot of launch capacities.
How much smaller in size would it have been, say, to the previous generation one?
I think we saved a ratio of 2 to 3 times thanks to miniaturization, thanks to compactness, thanks to very bold and innovative design to really maximize and optimize the size of the spacecraft and accommodating the maximum of equipment in a minimum volume, minimum size.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's very nice design, very innovative, capable of impressive performances, 30 centimeter native resolution, a lot of collection of capacity in square kilometers, etc.
And 5 years to build this?
5 years to build this, from kickoff to launch.
And what would have been the previous generation times lap?
Usually, with the design, the manufacturing, and then the launch, it used to be 7+ years, even with lower capacities, lower performances. Now we have industrial processes, far more, I would say, and quicker methodologies from design to manufacturing and test, which allowed us to have far more performances in less costs and quicker time to delivery.
So it makes you wonder, we'll talk about the future in a bit, but what could you achieve in 10 or 15 years from now? It'd be extraordinary.
Well, you know, we are working on constellations, on building more and more satellites in terms of numbers, in terms of time to delivery, in terms of launching several satellites at once. So we'll continue to improve, being smaller, being quicker, and being less costly to launch and operate.
Okay, now the chicken and egg thing for both of you. What comes first? You design a new satellite and think, will the customers come, or do the customers say, I want something new?
For me, it's all about the customer, honestly, and this Pleiades Neo journey was about answering a customer request, a customer need. So we took all the efforts, all the knowledge we have from the last 25 years on this market and put it into these satellites. It's all about delivering to the customers.
So let me get this right. The customer calls you and says, I want something newer, bigger, better, and then you call up Philippe and say, get it done.
Well, in fact, we work very tightly together from the understanding of the marketplace and the customer expectations to translate that into design features, capabilities, to both deliver very high resolution imagery, capacity of collection, very quick tasking capabilities and downloading of imagery, together with the ground capacities to process the imagery, to enable digital services deliveries to our customers. So it's an end-to-end chain of capacities and performances to satisfy our customers with respect to their latest expectations, the needs for application, and also to satisfy the global marketplace.
Without giving away any business-sensitive information, what kind of, I guess customers are already anxiously waiting for this to go up and use it. So what kind of things have they said they'd like to use it for without giving anything too sensitive?
The typical customers will have governmental customers for sure, but actually what was amazing in the journey of the last years is that it's more on the commercial market that we got the highest, I would say, appetite, especially to invest upfront. So we have already customers before the launch. So we have people who really believed into the quality, into the performance of what we deliver before seeing the images. And that's great. That's a great comfort. And now we will work on the next phase of customers, governmental, commercial, non-governmental. It's really plenty, thousands of different customers who are interested.
If I'm a new customer who, I'm liking what you're telling me, so I want to get some photos from you. I've never reached out to Airbus. Is there a number I call? How do I get in touch with you and say I want some photos?
It's a good question. There are different ways, and it's constantly evolving. Actually, one of the easiest ways is to go through our web interface, a digital platform, as we call it now, which is called OneAtlas. This is a very easy web connection where you have access actually to our full library of data, not only from the last days and months, but from years. On top of that, you can use and benefit from the performance on the clouds. You have seen the artificial intelligence effect I showed you. You can do that in a few minutes, actually using the computing power of the clouds. And you can, of course, task satellites with this type of web interface, which is very modern.
And just very quick wrap, data protection is incredibly important as well.
It is very important. It is very important, and especially for some of our governmental customers. So it has been always at the core of our work. and of our systems. And you were asking me on the way to get access to the data. Actually, some customers need also a direct access. This is why we have teams all around the world who are also able to interface with the customers directly and take care of their special needs.
Thank you very much, Francois. You'll come back in a bit. I'm now going to bring Raphael in because we have another important segment here. You'll be back in a second. Thank you very much. So, you know perfectly well that we interact with you through social media a lot. We love it. Keep on sending in your questions and queries because we want to answer them. And this is a whole new sequence as part of this live streaming tonight of the Vega launch, the first of 2021, I should remind you. And you sent in a bunch of questions, and Philippe and my other guru here are here to answer them. So we want to talk to you about some of these questions. And here's the first one, a little homework. Someone who likes to play golf. What force is required to place a golf ball on orbit?
Well, this is an excellent question that still requires some simplifications. So let's consider a golf ball that is placed on the equator. So it already benefits from the rotational speed of the Earth. So the whole point in putting the ball into orbit is to give it a speed of at least 8 kilometers per second. If that speed is lower than this limit, then the ball will fall back on Earth because the force applied to the ball is weaker than the gravity force of the Earth. If the speed is higher than 11 kilometers per second, then the ball will escape the gravity of the Earth and it will continue its way into space. Also, we have to note that the force that needs to be applied to orbit the ball is also dependent on how fast you want to get there. If, for example, you want to put the ball into orbit in 10 minutes, then the force you will apply is rather weak. It will be at the order of magnitude of less than 1 Newton. If you want to get there in 10 seconds, then you will need to apply a much stronger force that would be more than 30 newtons. And this is, again, very simplified way to see the problem because, of course, we don't take into account the friction of the air, which is very dependent on the specific shape of the launch vehicle and also dependent on the trajectory that you will choose in order to put your object into orbit.
Okay, but we're not going to be playing golf anytime soon in orbit. But let's go to the next question, and this is for you, Philippe. Are there any situations where a satellite could catch fire in space?
Well, you know, there's no atmosphere up there, so we don't have fire per se. We may have some other failures like electrical shutdown, short circuits, propulsion issues and failures. So this is the kind of failures we face in orbit on satellites. And then you have to resolve that remotely to solve the issue and to get back on track.
And regarding launch vehicle, what we do is that we passivate the upper stage. It just means that we drop the residual propellant in order to prevent from an explosion due to a sudden heat from the sun. This is very key in order not to generate debris that would be caused by the explosion. This is required by the French space law, which is one of the most virtuous legislation framework in the space sector.
Fantastic. Now let's go to a third question here. We're getting a lot of questions about, you know, we talked about this earlier, Philippe, the mega constellations. There's so many satellites going out, the CubeSats, there's tiny ones going up there. And so we're getting a lot of questions about increasing risks. Could there be collisions? And also we had one real big fan of space who sent in a question as well. And we hope we can see it here in a second about what are the risks of a collision between, say, a launcher and a satellite. Hopefully we can see that now. Well, there we are.
Hi, Ariane and Airbus. As it's getting quite busy up there in low Earth orbit with satellites,
Okay.
how is it worked out from the launch time to satellite deployment that they are safe from collision by other satellites?
Well, apart from you have your new recruit in a few years you can get, Go on, you can both answer.
So regarding the launch vehicle, what we do is that we calculate the risk to collide the International Space Stations where Thomas Pesquet actually returned a couple days ago. So it's, let's say that it translates into short launch windows where we cannot simply launch during the day, but it's very short times. It is true that if mega constellations keep increasing in low Earth orbits, we will need to calculate this risk with other space objects. It is not technically difficult to do so, but I should remind that the risk to collide with the launch vehicle with another space object right now is very low. This is like a boat that would hit a can of soda in the Mediterranean Sea.
Good imagery there. Philippe?
Indeed, more and more satellites, larger and larger constellations, will lead to more and more risks, meaning trying to avoid collisions, but there are some computations of trajectories. It's being followed up in real time. So currently, all this is mastered and the collisions are avoided this way. It will, of course, the risk will increase and it will be more and more complex to avoid collisions.
And I think you're working on technology just to handle that kind of thing for the future, aren't you?
Yes, indeed. In particular, from both ground technologies with respect to radar to really compute the trajectories, to automatic detection and maneuvers to avoid collisions in orbit.
Okay. Apart from social media, what's the kind of questions you both get a lot? That, you know, from people who ask you about what you do with Vega. Can you think of something that comes to mind in particular?
I think one of the big questions is the business model of space. We are talking about large constellations, thousands or hundreds of spacecraft. It has a cost. It's a long development. It will need a lot of launches. It will take years to get there, in particular in telecommunications, but also sometimes in Earth observation. So the question is, what about the money? Where does it come from? Will it work? Will the service work in space? So these are the major questions with respect to the current buzz on constellations.
Raphael, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Philippe, stay there. Thanks very much. So, Francois Lombard, if you can join us again. Just a reminder, you know, everything is going smoothly. We're waiting for more information from Damien, who will be here shortly. In the meantime, I have the two cool customers from Airbus who at the moment have big smiles on their face. Francois, we talked earlier about, you know, not every resolution, not every photo fits each customer. They want, you know, you can offer different solutions. Tell me more about that.
This is right. And by the way, you were asking me how to access to the imagery, and I will use that as a reference. Here you have an interface which I mentioned before. So if you have your credit card, you can go on this kind of interface, and here you will have all type of data with different type of resolutions indeed. You see that you will have Pleiades at 50 centimeter, you will have spot at 1.5 meter, you will have radar imagery. And the point is, depending on what you want to do, what's your mission, you will use different type of image. The radar you will use to look through the clouds, for instance, or to look at data elevation models, constructions. The spot, 1.5 meter, it's great for maritime. What we have seen before was a spot map, actually, very, very broad, good quality, but a resolution which is less accurate. And then Pléiades Neo, you will use it more to spot at very, very specific area and to look for smaller objects. Here is also an example on how you would use that with your credit card again. You have a very simple way to do it. You look at the archives if you need it. You can use the analytics toolbox if you want to use the AI. No big deal. You just use it very simply. And the most exquisite part, if you want to task the satellites, have a direct access to the satellites and order the next image for the next orbit, you can do that directly on the web.
I thought you could ask me for my credit card details.
I could do that.
Philippe.
Yes.
We have a track record of Airbus of doing Earth observation satellites going back a long way. There was Spot, for example, some time ago. And you still use Spot, right?
Yes, of course. I mean, we are coming from a long legacy of Earth observation capacities and satellites. It started more than 35 years ago with the launch of Spot 1 in 1986. We are currently using two Spot satellites, 6 and 7, 1.5 meters, 2 Pleiades, 50 centimeters. We are also using some DMCs and Vision 1 satellite from SSTL, plus 3 radar satellites, Terrasa X, Tandem X, and PASS. The Pléiades Neos are going to complete the Airbus fleet in adding capacities at 30 centimeters. So in fact, we are operating a whole fleet with various capabilities which are really fully complementary and that we use for all the vertical markets applications.
And you can confirm, and people still want some of the older satellite technology out there.
Yeah, definitely. It's really the combination of all these sensors that makes sense to the market.
And that would be because they just don't need that much accuracy or detail, I should say, or because the price is right for what they need?
Exactly, because of also the mix of revisit, the coverage you need to have, the budget you have. There are lots of reasons, but it's very, very complementary. There are examples where you need to go for high accuracy. And again, here you have a picture which is showing a very specific case of actually customers who want more than images. Here you are looking at an airfield where what we are looking at to do here is to give alerts to customers by identifying the airplanes and various objects around the airfield.
I want to stop you there because thanks to this studio, we have this incredible augmented reality. And Philippe, I want you to talk us through the satellite that we're seeing here. So any second now, in front of us, as if magic, we will see the satellite here going around the globe. Go ahead, tell us a little bit about this.
Yes, you really see the full constellation of the Airbus fleet with the previous satellites that we are operating, Spot 6 and Spot 7, Pleiades 1A and 1B. You see the 4 Pleiades Neos with their real characteristic of the round flower solar rays. You see also our radar satellites, PASS, Terrasa X and Tandem X, and also the small satellite fleet of SSTL. So with this bunch of satellites, this fleet, operating at various, let's say, characteristics in terms of resolution, swath, and capacity of collection, we aggregate the data to provide our customers with what they expect in terms of use cases, services, or products in various vertical markets. If you were talking about maritime, agriculture, local-based services, defense, etc., we all use a combination of those sensors.
Now, everything is going well at the launch right now, but it doesn't mean that you can, if everything goes smoothly as we expect, that you can now take a 6-month break, right? You're thinking about what happens next.
Yeah, not really. First of all, in the next few days, we'll have to get the first image. And you can imagine it's also a very emotional milestone after so long work on this satellite. So this is the next big step. Then we will have a time for calibration of the full system. And then the rush and the run will start on the commercialization. These thousands of customers who are waiting indeed to use this data. And it needs to come in a very, very good shape to their workflows.
And you're looking at the satellites that you'll be having to make and thinking 10 years ahead as well, won't you?
Yes. I mean, typically, these satellites, they will work for us for more than 10 years, as Philippe said before. And obviously, we are also preparing the next steps beyond that. It's a constant evolution of the portfolio. And the idea is to remain on the, if I may say, on the top of the world of this Earth observation market.
Francois, that's all great. And hopefully you'll be back with us in just a few minutes with even more good news coming to us from the orbit. Sure. And I bring back Raphael again. Raphael, just a reminder, you've been sending in questions to us through social media. We love that. Keep that going. And when this program is over, we want you to continue to share stuff with us, and we'll share with you, of course. It's a two-way street, and you've sent in more questions. Here's our first question, another question I received. How easy is it to get a photo when I want one?
Well, in fact, in the current ordering loop, you just have to decide what you want to get, when, where, and the digital interface enables you to directly order, task the satellite, and get the product in from a few minutes to a few tens of minutes time frame back to your desktop. It's a full automatic loop between your desktop up to the satellite tasking, downlinking the whole imagery stream, and then post-processing the imagery on the ground to deliver to you the product, the image, or whatever you want.
And I guess when all 4 of those NEOs are up there, it'll be even swifter?
Exactly. The objective of having 4 spacecraft is to accelerate revisit, to have intraday revisit of the same point on the Earth, to enable more collection of data, quicker access, and additional capacity of collection.
Anything you want to add there? No?
I think you said everything.
Let's go on to the next question then. I'm desperate to understand the graveyard orbit above GEO. I totally understand that it will take a lot of delta V to deorbit, but what happens once that graveyard starts to fill up?
Well, in fact, in GEO orbit, you are at 36,000 kilometers. So what we call the graveyard orbit is putting the satellite, in fact, above, at about 200 to 300 kilometers above. So usually we keep a bit of fuel in the propulsion system to get back upwards. And this orbit is so high that it takes a lot of time to decay or to degrade. And we preserve, as such, the GEO orbit from any perturbation. So it needs a bit of a delta V to get there, but it's really safe and it's really for a long time.
No, yeah, it is true that the more distance you are from the Earth, the wider your orbit is, and the graveyard orbit is going to be lasting for a long time before it is actually filled up. I think in terms of debris, we should probably more focus on the low Earth orbit in order to not generate additional debris, and this is why we actually, with Vega, we save one last boost of the upper stage in order to deorbit it, so that we designed, let's say, a clean space missions in order to not generate additional debris. I
want to come back to you, Philip, because I know that you're actually working on technology right now to clean up debris from space. Tell me about that.
Yes, in fact, we've got a lot of objects in space. Even if the latest designs comply with the space law to really deorbit, to passivate the spacecraft, etc., to make it safe and clean, there are a lot of old objects that we need to remove. So there have been the latest developments to send into orbit some kind of cleanup satellites to catch some of the debris and to get rid of them. So some of the startups have started some Pathfinder activities, and I think it will grow given the number of objects we need to remove to have a safe space, in particular in low Earth orbit.
That's incredible. I mean, and we're talking just very quickly, how many years from?
It's running up now. I think it will develop in the next 3-5 years and will be more generic in the next 10 years for sure.
Thank you, Philippe. You'll be joining us again soon. That's amazing. Okay, thanks very much. Thank you so much for sending in those questions, and continue to do it. Now, coming in now is my launch guru again. Since we've been here, you've been away. Give us some information. What's happened so far?
Yeah, the mission has been progressing for sure. So we are getting close to the second ignition of the AVUM. We are at the end of the first long ballistic coasting phase, during which we performed what we call the barbecue, which is a slow rotation along the longitudinal axis.
Barbecue?
Yeah.
Okay. You really explain that one to me.
Yeah, yes. This is a really slow rotation. So we are rotating along the longitudinal axis of the launcher, so that we will not expose always the same side of the spacecraft towards the sun, so that we average the temperature of the different nodes of the spacecraft all over the time. Exactly as in a barbecue when you twist the sausages and so on.
I want to now turn to another amazing animation. This is the dispenser, I believe we're going to see. Is that right?
Yeah.
So if it should come up here magically in front of the studio, here we go. Okay, talk us through the dispenser.
Yeah, so here you see the upper part, exactly how it looks like at this moment during the flight. So you see Pléiades Neo 3 on the top of the stack. It is the upper passenger. It is mated onto the rest of the stack thanks to an element that we call the interface ring. It is made of a clamp band. Basically, it is just a band that is tightened. And we are below the interface ring. You see a shape in the form of an hexagon, a black structure. This is what we call the SSMS hexa. And on this hexagon, on some faces, you will find the auxiliary passengers and also some elements that are particular for this flight, which are the equipment dedicated to a demonstration that we apply on VV18 that we call TDRS. TDRS stands for Telemetry Data Relay Satellite. Basically, the principle is that instead of sending the data from the launcher down to the ground station directly, we will go through a relay satellite. There is a set of such satellites that are currently orbiting around the Earth, and so the Vega launch vehicle will send exactly the same telemetry directly to this satellite that will relay the telemetry to Washington, and then from the US it will go back to CSG, where we will decommute the telemetry data. And the big advantage of this TDRS system is the fact that we can ensure a full coverage of the flight. We will have no telemetry at all because we will not depend anymore on the location of the ground station.
Where is this built?
There are different equipment. Some are commercial off the shelves, so they are bought mainly by US suppliers, and some other equipment are performed in Europe by other industrial suppliers. And everything is integrated during the integration of the upper part. So part of it was performed in Brno, in the Czech Republic, and the end of the operation was performed in French Guiana, when we made also the auxiliary passengers and Pléiades.
Tell us what the next you're waiting for from the managers in Kourou now.
Yes, now we are still at the end of this long costing phase. So the next step will be first the acquisition with the ground station network of the telemetry, which will give us the official confirmation that we have still acquired the telemetry. And then we will have the reignition of the AVUM. So if you remember well, I explained to you that at the beginning of the mission, we performed the first AVUM boost in order to put the launch vehicle and the spacecraft into an elliptical orbit. And now, basically, what we are performing with the second AVUM boost is just a circularization of the orbit, so that it is not elliptical anymore, but just like a circle, and we will inject the Pleiades spacecraft then on the orbit that it requires, which is mainly an altitude of 620 kilometers, slightly more.
And the other ones, the 5 others, will be slightly higher up, right?
No, they will be slightly below.
Okay.
But after the separation of Pleiades, and we will discuss it a bit more in details later on, we will perform 2 other burns in order to get them quite separated from the distance of a Pléiades Neo, and then we will trigger the separation of the CubeSat.
This is all. So this is all looking positive, isn't it?
At that time, yeah. So we will see when the end of the mission will be completed, but up to now, everything is nominal.
And I think you're going to have information from AVUM very shortly as well, aren't we?
Yeah, yes, it's all the telemetry data that we received corresponds to different sensors of the launch vehicle. So at that part of the flight, most of them are directly located on different places of the AVUM stage. Some of them are also located on the adapters. So we have some on the hexagon. That is a particular structure for today, which is the black structure that you can see below Pléiades. And we have other sensors that are located directly on the adapter. Just second ignition of the AVUM. So we have the confirmation that this AVUM second burn has been initiated properly.
So just a confirmation, everything is going smoothly. We've just had the second AVUM ignition, which means that we're getting very close to our ambition, our targets.
Yes, and the second AVUM burn will last around 80 seconds.
How many?
80 seconds.
80 seconds.
More or less.
Okay, and then after that, what happens after that?
After that, we will have the cutoff, and we will have the orientation maneuvers in order to prepare for the proper separation of Pléiades.
Raphael, that's pretty good news, right?
It is very good news because it's a critical phase of the launch. Of course, this is like the last stages before releasing the satellites into space. This upper stage gives like huge flexibility in order to perform very complex missions. And as a matter of fact, we have performed complex missions with Vega and launch many types of satellites, mostly Earth observation satellites for governments, including the Sentinel satellites, part of the European Copernicus constellation, also for Earth observation for private companies, obviously. We also have launched.
I just want to share with you that we have the confirmation of the cutoff of the AVOM for the second AVOM burn. So now we'll start what we call the space ballet, where we will begin all the orientation maneuvers of the launch vehicle in order to be in the required direction before separating Pleiades Neo 3. And then we will trigger the separation of Pleiades Neo 3.
Fantastic news. Thanks, Raphael, because I want to bring in back once again our colleagues from Airbus who are going to come in, Francois and Philippe. Well, your smiles are getting bigger and bigger.
Yes,
Of course, of course. Watching the ballet.
So in any moment now, you should get confirmation, is that right, Damien?
Yes, I have not yet received the confirmation, but as soon as for sure, I will share it with you directly.
That the satellite should be into orbit soon. I mean, this must be a real sigh of relief because you've been working on this for 5 years with your 1,000-strong team as well, right?
Yeah, and it's really, honestly, it's their success. Huh? It's their success, and I know all the emotions of the people. All over the world, we have people watching from the US, from Asia.
Hang on.
I have very good news to tell you guys. The separation has been confirmed.
Great.
Congratulations.
Bravo. Bravo. Excellent. Excellent.
very big success. Thanks.
Indeed. And I think we'll be crossing over to Kourou very soon.
Yes, look at that.
There's the Kourou team there. Can you see them? But there's still other satellites we have to put into orbit as well.
Yeah, the job is not completed for the launcher. We will have to prepare for the next steps, but we will discuss them in details after.
So now let's go back to the space wall and we can go to Kourou and we can see the scenes there as your satellite is pretty much in position and your next step is looking at getting access to the data, right?
Yes,
That's
exactly.
the crucial thing. Let's see if we can see Kourou here on the space wall, because I think you'd probably like to maybe even share some comments with them or to congratulate them. Can we see Kourou any moment now as they celebrate over there? But anyway, until we do, your quick thoughts right now on behalf of Airbus. Here we go, by the way.
Until they come, I think really I'd like to thank Arianespace, Vega. I think it's a great success. It was a return to flight, as you said. And I'd like to thank again the full team of Airbus. That's the main thought coming to my mind.
Okay, Stefan. I've got Stefan Israel here, the CEO of Arianespace, more relaxed than he was earlier before the launch. Your thoughts?
Yes. So I want to thank our Airbus customer. I see on the screen Philippe and Francois. They are all the partners for us, demanding partner, which is normal when you have an ambitious project. So far so good. All the information we have on Pleiades Neo are positive. So success is here, and this is a very important milestone for Airbus, for Vega, for Arianespace, and all its partners.
Okay, do you want to say anything to them?
Yes, I think, a big thank to Arianespace and to have you. These are colleagues. We are all on the same boat. We've been working so hard to get Vega back to flight and back to launch, and it's a great success.
We now have comment from the new president of the CNES, the French Space Agency. Let's listen in to what he has to say, okay, and we'll come back to you. Over to you.
Pléiades Neo vient de se séparer, la mission n'est pas encore totalement terminée, mais d'abord quand même je veux me féliciter de cette première partie de la mission qui s'est parfaitement déroulée, et puis je veux me féliciter aussi du retour en vol de Vega. On attendait tous ce moment, je suis persuadé que c'est le premier d'une longue série. Vega est un lanceur qui est important dans la famille européenne des lanceurs, et on est très heureux de le voir aujourd'hui partir de Kourou. Pléiades Neo s'inscrit dans une tradition forte française d'excellence autour de l'observation de la Terre, l'observation optique de la Terre. Pléiades Neo, c'est la grande famille des satellites avec Spot, avec Helios, avec Pléiades évidemment, et puis avec les satellites militaires aussi d'observation de la Terre. Le CNES a joué un rôle absolument majeur dans cette grande aventure, rôle technique évidemment, en travaillant directement sur les premiers satellites. Et aujourd'hui, Pléiades Neo, c'est un satellite qui est financé à 100% par des fonds privés. Et on voit bien à travers cet exemple que le CNES s'inscrit dans la dynamique du New Space, mais s'y inscrit déjà depuis très longtemps. Alors le CNES va accompagner Pléiades Neo pendant toutes les étapes à venir. Bien entendu, le CNES va participer à la recette en vol d'une part, et puis il va continuer à jouer un rôle important sur l'étalonnage du satellite. C'est quelque chose qu'il sait très bien faire parce qu'il a toute une expertise qui vient des origines de la filière depuis Spot. Et la suite, c'est CO3D. En 2023, on va lancer 4 satellites CO3D issus d'un partenariat public-privé qui vont nous permettre de faire de l'observation de la Terre en 3 dimensions. Le CSG garantit l'autonomie de l'accès à l'espace pour tous les pays d'Europe. On y est tous extraordinairement attachés. Au-delà de ça, le CSG a montré aussi son efficacité, sa qualité technique, le fait qu'il était capable de s'adapter à des lanceurs très différents. Aujourd'hui, avec Arianespace, nous accueillons Vega, nous accueillons Soyuz et nous accueillons Ariane 5. Le rôle du CNES est important au CSG. Bien entendu, on maintient la base en conditions opérationnelles, on participe à la préparation des lancements et des satellites. Et puis surtout, je sais que tout le monde est mobilisé pour veiller à la sauvegarde, parce que c'est une question évidemment de sécurité des personnes et des biens qui est la priorité numéro 1 du CNES au CSG. J'attends avec impatience le moment où je pourrai venir et être parmi vous, à la fois pour participer à la vie du centre, pour discuter des grands enjeux et de l'avenir du centre, et puis bien entendu aussi pour un prochain lancement directement avec vous.
That was the new president of the French Space Agency. Just 1 hour ago, the first Vega launch of 2021 took off with the Neo satellite on it. It's being put into its orbit right now, and we can go across to Kourou, where there's going to be a lot of happy smiles there. And let's see the team right now who are behind that successful launch. Gentlemen, over to you. Your thoughts, all 3 of you.
Okay, thank you. I would first like to thank a big thanks to Arianespace and AEO for this successful launch. It was a very long-awaited time since we have started this program 5 years ago, and today we can really start our journey for our service in the coming 10 years. I have a special talk also today for the hundreds of Airbus people who are attending this live meeting at home in front of the screen, because due to the pandemic. And I hope that the next flight in 3 months from now will be the opportunity to have a physical event that we all deserve for that.
Yeah. Just a few words on my side. I want to thank you, the customer, Airbus, of course. I'm very happy for you and for all the people who were waiting for this moment. As usual, it's amazing to consider that the separation moment is something that's it's very different for us. On our side, we accomplished our mission, and on your side, we just start. So we wish Pleiades Neo 3 a long, safe, and peaceful life.
Thank you, Fabrizio. Yes, very strong emotions tonight. Mixture of joy, of relief for this successful launch, and pride also. So I will really like to thank and congratulate all the Airbus team of teams and our industrial partners around the world who have given the best of themselves for this great project. So here we are. This is your moment, and let's celebrate.
A quick question to both Philippe and Fabrizio. You worked together on this Pléiades Neo. What was it like between Airbus Defence and Arianespace?
Our cooperation have started in June 2017 when we signed this contract for the launch of the 4 Pléiades Neo. And since this time, it was a long journey. And I would say that the cooperation took on with a concrete meaning when we have to face hard times, I would say, with some difficulties, the development delays, the failures, and the COVID crisis also to manage. And we had all to have a good cooperation all together to recover from this time. And today we are where we are, and it's good, very good sign.
Thank you, Philippe. Yes. Just a few words on my side also. What I can say is that the communication, the exchange on a programmatic point of view or technical point of view have always been very open-minded, cooperative, proactive. So I want to thank you, the customers, all your team, and also my colleague Veronique Lazel that she can be here for the COVID pandemic, but it's thanks to her because he accompanied the customer all over these last 4 years.
Lena, when will you actually establish contact with the satellite, do you think?
Yeah, so at 5:44 Toulouse, in Toulouse, the Airbus control center will receive the first telemetries. So our operational team and our satellite experts are gathered in this control center to run the first operations in orbit. So they have a very dense planning for the next days. They are very focused and well prepared. So I send them my warm encouragement, and we keep in touch, of course, in the next hours.
Gentlemen, well done. You're probably going to need a bit of rest soon, but you still have some work to do. But thanks very much for talking to us so hot off the press after these big, important announcements. So, we can now go, okay, let's go back to staying in Kourou, and we're now going to speak to Danielle of the European Space Agency. Danielle, can you hear me there? Damien, what have you got in terms of something new?
Yes, we've got some progress on the mission during the different interviews. So the launcher completed what we call the contamination and collision avoidance maneuvers. These are maneuvers dedicated to ensure sufficient distancing between the launcher and Pléiades Neo that we have just separated, and ensuring that we will not contaminate it when we will start the AVUM third boost. The AVUM third boost has been ignited and has been completed successfully, and currently we are in a phase that we call the long coasting phase, number 2, between AVUM 3 and AVUM 4, in order to go to the orbit required at the end by the auxiliary passengers, 10 kilometers below the altitude of Pléiades Neo 3.
Okay, gentlemen, thanks very much. You can now take a break now, a much needed break. Your heart was beating quite a lot in the last hour or so. So thank you. While I bring in, we'll be talking to you again soon, I'm sure. Raphael wants to join us now. Okay, and you must be pretty happy as well, Raphael.
Of course, this is a very happy moment. It's like a tension released, and so it's a very relieved moment for everybody.
And we're seeing live pictures, of course, from Kourou right now behind us here. And we're hoping to speak to the launch director from the European Space Agency any moment now. And I think he's just being putting in microphones being put up for him now, and he'll be talking to us very shortly. So, and for you, is everything?
No, nothing new to say up to now. I will keep you informed as soon as I have fresh news.
Okay, let's go to Danielle now from the Europeans. Danielle, can you hear us? Can you hear me? Great. Danielle, a successful mission tonight.
A successful mission tonight, and especially a big relief. I mean, we really went through highs and lows in the past years with Vega. First of all, 14 successes in a row. It was great. Then a mishap with VV15. Back to success with VV16, where we had a proof of concept of the small spacecraft mission service, which was really a proof of concept and which showed that we can address new markets with existing products. This was really great, and we used tonight this again with one of its configurations, the Hexa module. And then VV17, a low again. And now back on the path of success with VV18. The mission is not yet totally over, but we are definitely on a good path, and let's make it now a sustainable path.
Just one last question. the European Space Agency played a key role as well in making sure that this Vega launch, the first one of this year, worked.
Yes, I mean, we are, as ESA, we are the qualification authority. So when we had a low, when we had to face a low, we had a number of tasks. We had to put in place an investigation commission, independent one, together with Arianespace. We had to then make sure through a task force that all the measures, the recommendations are implemented. But what I want to insist on is that in the difficulty, the teams were really joining forces in an outstanding way. I mean, ESA team, and I really would like to thank the team, the Arianespace team, the AEO team, and also all the suppliers from industry did an outstanding job, and this is why we are here tonight, again, back on the path of success.
Thank you, Daniel. And I think you've got Giulio Ranzo right next to you. If you can pass her the microphone. Is she there next to you?
With great pleasure. Here is Giulio.
Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you. Great to be here.
So, tell me, there must be some relief there.
Yes, a lot of relief. We've gone through very intense effort over the last 5 months, checking, rechecking, and rechecking everything on the launcher to get ready for flight. I shall take this opportunity to thank Arianespace and the European Space Agency for having done a lot of work with us. Of course, it has been quite emotional to come back to flight and to perform well. The mission is not finished yet. We still have to deliver 5 small satellites. So this is very interesting because this flight in itself contains a couple of novelties. It's the first time we use a portion of our small satellite deployer SSMS for delivering 5 small satellites to space in addition to the main payload. This is the first time that we use only part of SSMS, so it's an interesting novelty. And the second very important novelty is that we have on board the tracking data relay system, so we have a means to follow the telemetry of the launcher in flight via space. In addition to the set of ground stations that are on Earth, we are controlling what happens to the launcher in flight via space. So this is a novelty for European launchers. It's a very interesting flight.
And you also have some more kind of serious news you want to talk about as well?
Sorry, say it again. I couldn't hear you well.
There was something more kind of serious you wanted to mention as well that was with your team?
Yes, of course. As I said before, I really want to thank our team. They have worked under a lot of stress. And of course, the condition of the pandemic has made this launch campaign far more challenging than in the past. Several have unfortunately fallen sick during the campaign, and so they've gone through this. I really, really want to thank them for their dedication and effort throughout the period of the launch campaign.
Thanks very much. Maybe we can now go next to you. I can see that Marino Frenito is waiting. He's the head of Vega's business unit at Arianespace.
Yes.
Thank you. Marino,
okay.
Over to you.
Hi, Chris. Hi. Yeah, thanks. So I'm very happy, first of all, because we have separated Pléiades Neo. I'm very happy for Airbus because we worked hand in hand for quite a long time now. We signed this contract about, I think, 4 years ago. It was in 2017. So I have to thank Airbus for the trust they have put in Arianespace and in Vega in particular. They've always been, the major customers for us, and we really want to deliver. We are back on track after some difficult years, and so we are very relieved, but we're also very proud to have accomplished this mission tonight. Now, of course, the mission is not over yet. We still have some payloads on board, and we still have some customers. And I also want to thank these customers for coming with us tonight, for coming with the X model of the SSMS. It's the first time we use this configuration. So I know that they are watching this video transmission tonight, and I want to say that they are also very important to us. So I want to thank the Norwegian Space Agency and Spaceflight Laboratory, who has built the NorthSat 3 satellite, and SFL in particular. This is the third time that they fly with us, and I hope that we will have many flights in the future. And also we have Nano Avionics for the first time. We've manufactured the Bravo satellite for Aurora Insight. We have the Lemur satellites from Spire, and we also have the ELO satellite from Eutelsat. So we're also looking forward to embarking more and more satellites of this kind on the next SSMS missions. And I'm sure that we will serve the new space market with our reliability, flexibility, and we will deliver for our customers more and more in the future.
Thank you for talking to us so quickly after the good news on NEO, and of course you still have more work to do, as you said. We're going to be talking a lot more about SSMS here. Thank you, Marino, and let me turn back to you, Damien. So, where are we now?
Now we are preparing for the next step of the mission, which will be to deliver the separation of the CubeSat, as it was mentioned by Marino and Giulio Ronzo before. So the steps that are completed now is we have completed the third AVOM boost. We have nominally lost the link with New Norcia as part of the telemetry link, and we are in the middle of the second long costing phase between the AVOM 3 and the AVOM 4. During which we ensure the correct condition for the CubeSat, and at the end of the longer ballistic phase, we will trigger the fourth AVOM boost, which will allow us to circularize the orbit before separating all the auxiliary passengers.
Is this a good time to talk about the dispenser?
Yeah, I believe it's a good moment to show you what is the status of the upper part at this moment of the flight. So at this moment of the flight, so we have separated the Pléiades Neo 3. So for sure it is not present anymore on the launcher. So you can see here what the upper part looks like. We have the famous hexagon, SSMS hexagon. So it's the black structure that you can see in the center. It is part of the program SSMS that has flown on VV16, and here we use it in order to offer flexibility for auxiliary passengers and to offer them the possibility to be embarked in a flight with a piggyback configuration. So it was the case for VV18, and the passengers that we have on the flight for VV18, they were mentioned before, but we can see here their location on the hexagon. So if we start with the first passengers during these descriptions, we will see all the passengers one after another. We have three types of location on the hexagon. The first one is related to the separation system for NorthSat 3. The separation system is called XPod Duo. This is a separation system that has flown already on VV16. We have another deployer which is dedicated to TIVAC 182. So here on the images you can see NorthSat 3 and its deployer. This is a big, I would say the big microsatellite here on the mated onto the hexagon panel. If we look at the other position on the hexagon panel, we will see the position of the other CubeSat. So here we have the Astrophane deployer, which contains 3 CubeSats. So if we open the deployer, we will see their location. So inside the deployer, we have first a CubeSat, which is made of 6 units. It is called Bravo. And next to it, we have 2 CubeSats made of 3 units each. The first one is Lemur 2162, which is in the lower position, and the second one is Lemur 2161, and it is located in the upper position of the Astrophane deployer. What is important to know also about the Astrophane deployer is the fact that in this configuration it is made of 3 doors. in order to separate the spacecraft one after another and independently of one another. It means that we do not have to separate all of them in one shot, which is really important for us because it allows us to ensure that they will not collide. Because if we separate all the CubeSats at the same moment without controlling the directions, there is a huge risk for them to collide shortly after the separations. So this is why we trigger the separation one after another, and this is the same for the other CubeSat, the last one being TAIVAC 182A, that you can see here in the lower position. It is the golden structure, and it will be separated independently of the other in the same sequence of separations, applying sufficient delay between the different separations and control the orientation in order to be sure that we separate them in the right directions.
Rafa, you were earlier on in the program, you were talking also about the dispenser and about the piggybacking and how this is also practical and useful.
Yeah, it is useful because we see a booming demand for launching small satellites today, from CubeSats to bigger satellites of hundreds of kilos. And the SSMS service, we saw it tonight, is the perfect solution to actually address this demand. And I would like to take the opportunity to remind that we have opened a competition to offer a free ride for a CubeSat to be launched, our future rideshare opportunity using our launch vehicles at Arianespace. And the competition is open until May the 14th. The winner will be announced in June the 16th. And you only need to apply on a website dedicated to the Vivatech Challenge event. In doing so, Arianespace is really committed to support a project that is going to improve life on Earth, either through a space application that is an innovative one, or through a scientific project that will improve our knowledge to be shared between everybody. And so we are really looking for passionate and innovative candidates for this competition. This is very, very exciting.
Sounds like a fantastic competition. So if you are interested, remind me of the dates, the deadline.
The deadline is May the 14th, and the announcement is going to be June the 16th.
Okay, the announcement, June the 16th. Damien, I guess what we want to do now is take a deep sigh of relief, breath, and go through what's happened, yeah?
Yeah, let's have a recap of the status of the mission. So the liftoff was perfectly completed from CSG. Then we had the functioning of the three solid boosters, P80, Zephyr 29, and Zephyr 9. We had then the first AVOM ignition and the first AVOM cutoff, which allowed us to put the launch vehicle onto an intermediate orbit towards the orbit to be reached at the end of the second AVOM boost in order to release Pléiades Neo 3 on an altitude of slightly more than 620 kilometers. And then we prepared for the separation of the auxiliary passengers. So we have completed the third AVOM boost. We are in the middle of the long ballistic phase. And ahead of us, there is the fourth AVOM boost, and then the separation of all the auxiliary passengers that is performed in one sequence. But as you can see on the movie, slightly delays between each separation. After this separation, the mission is not completed yet for the launcher. It still has to perform its final boost in order to re-enter and not leaving a debris into the low Earth orbit. And as you know, for the next step, you can follow them directly on the internet, as we will not cover them live.
That's right. We're coming to the conclusion of our programming here. And like Demi just said, you'll be able to see through the animation that we'll be providing on the screen the latest stages of the satellites, the other satellites, the 5 of them, being placed into their various orbits. We're going to show you in just a few seconds the main moment on the successful launch as the first Vega of 2021 went up into space. This is just a time for me to say just a couple of thanks to a few people. First of all, thanks to my 2 gurus who saved me here, who are the experts here. I want to thank the Airbus teams. I want to thank Arianespace teams who helped us put this all together. And I want to thank also the studio people here who did an amazing job and allowed us to communicate. We all know how difficult it is right now to communicate right now in the situation that we know, and yet we managed to share this with you. You got in touch with us through the social networks. Continue to do that, and we want you to stay in touch. We will continue to share everything that we can with you. So thank you so much for watching us, for what's been a successful and a great flight, and we really hope to see you again very soon. And why don't we just end with a replay of the big moment. Bye-bye for now.